What's up, YouTube? This is PN Collector here. Proud to give you guys a deck profile as well as a tournament report on my undefeated record going into Anaheim Regionals this past weekend. I went 9-0, which 9 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw altogether for the entire event. I'm about to give you guys my entire deck profile as well as my side deck and extra deck, my thoughts and opinions on what I played and how I prepared my best for this event. Also to show you guys the mat as well, and including the deck box that was given out as well for the first through 8th place. Alright guys, so let me go ahead and delve right into the deck and give you guys an idea of what I played. Now to let you guys know, I started off playing just pure Dragon Rulers, and the reason why I call it pure is because it doesn't involve anything with Dragunities, nor does it involve anything with involving other cards that help support the theme like plants or even using Blue Eyes White Dragon. It was just purely based on the Dragon Rulers. To start it off, I played 3 Blasters, 3 Titles, 3 Tempest, 3 Redox, 3 Maxis, 2 Effect Veilers, 2 Card Troopers, 2 Dragunity Corseska, 2 Debris Dragons, 1 Flame Veil Guard, and 1 Swift Scarecrow. Onto the spells, 3 Sacred Swords, 3 Cards of Consonance, 2 Dragon's Ravine, 1 Dark Hole, 1 Gold Sarcophagus, and 1 Book of Moon. My traps were 2 Vanity's Emptiness, 2 Regeki Breaks, 1 Return from the Different Dimension. My extra deck was 2 Mechathan Beastrago Sacks, 1 Gaia Charger, 1 Big Eye, 1 Star Eater, 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Crimson Blader, 1 Scrap Dragon, 1 Colossal Fighter, 1 Stardust Dragon, 2 Black Rose Dragons, Ancient Fairy Dragon, Orient Dragon, and Armory Arm. Okay? Now this, guys, was pretty much the main deck that I played for the entire event, of course, and that it pretty much did exactly what I wanted it to do. It actually even surpassed a lot of my expectations. I more or less focused on just trying to go with a more simplified build rather than having to play like Dragunities, which I don't like the fact that they have a strong weakness to Veiler and Maxi. So I just chose to go using the engine, as especially Ravine, since it's such a powerful card and it helps send every dragon you need to help get the elements set up for you right away, and being able to use everything to your full advantage is really powerful with this deck. Including cards like Vanity's Emptiness, Regeki Break, they're so powerful just in different matchups. Like Vanity's Emptiness against the mirror match was what I was concerned with the most. Main decking it actually proved to be a very powerful ally, not even just against dragons, but against other matchups as well. It helped outpace a lot of players too, especially with the dragons being able to constantly search, and I'm drawing cards as well. I could get to these cards faster, and I would see them be more prominent and be more detrimental to a lot of the plays that I made for the entire event. The 2 Corseska, a lot of people don't personally like them, but I feel that if you are playing triple Cards of Consonance, it's okay to actually run them. Not to mention is that it's a wind, it's still a dragon, and you can actually search it off to the Dragunity Ravine, so that means your card of Consonance can usually be live and you can always search for it when need be. Not to mention, if you do really need it, you can search it out through Tempest. So it has a lot of synergy with that card, especially with Cards of Consonance, even with going 7 Sword and then drawing multiple cards in one turn. One thing that I also noticed is I like triple Maxi in the deck. Some people only prefer 2 now, and not preferring to run 3, but I think 3 is fine. The deck total was 41 with it, and I was perfectly comfortable with it and didn't feel that it needed any issues or problems with it. The double Veiler was wonderful. I don't consider only thinking running 1. I would highly recommend only running 2. 3 is unnecessary. I feel it's a little bit cloggy, and one of my friends actually personally played 3 and didn't like it. I felt 2 to be the perfect number. Now, Card Trooper is very substantial to this deck. It actually, because of his ability to mill cards, it allows you to constantly go through your deck. Even the fact that a lot of people fear that he's vulnerable to Crimson Blader, that's not an issue really whatsoever. The fact that he actually helps you go through your deck, he draws you a card, he works off Debris Dragon. He has a lot of synergy and a lot of pushes that he can generally do, especially with any of the dragons. Now, I didn't play the Plant Engine, even though I do love the Plant Engine a lot. It does not, in my opinion, be a strong benefit to play in any tournaments right now due to the fact that Vanity's Emptiness is so popular at the moment. And with that, I wanted less problematic cards to exist in my deck, especially since Dandelion would only be a live card if I actually drew it. And now I know I can send it to the graveyard through Title's effect, but I'd rather commit more to using the Dragon's effects and getting more dragons in my graveyard than just relying on Dandelion and being punished by Max C plays. One thing to note about this deck too is that if your opponent does play Maxi against you, you can stop at just 1 to 2 cards they draw, and that's it. You should never be letting your opponent get 3 cards unless you know you're going to guarantee a game as well. For the most part, though, I did perform very well, especially the one Swift Scarecrow. It actually helped stop a lot of plays my opponents would outrush me. And I would simply Scarecrow, and then I usually had a Dark Hole in my hand because I would hold them for that specific case, and I would just wipe out my opponent's board. And you'd be surprised how convenient it is for you to get into these cards due to the fact that you run so much draw engine and searching that you go through most of your deck by turn 3. I had multiple instances where my deck was below 15 cards, a lot, most of the games. Now, as one important thing for terms of the extra deck, I'm actually running Thunder Charger. This was a very important card because during one of the mirror matches that I played against, he had floating tokens for Draco Sack. He had no Veiler, so I was able to create this, and he was at 24, and I attacked the token for game. So this became a very, very powerful card for me, and even in the sense that if I need it there, it's there. And I don't always have to commit with a Draco Sack or a Big Eye for most of my plays. Star Eater as well. Pretty much can say that I made almost all the games. The fact that my opponent cannot Scarecrow this was really powerful as well, because there was a point where one of my opponents in one of my games was in 3,300 life points, and I simply made this, and I made an Armory Arm and equipped it to it, and I attacked, and he couldn't Swift Scarecrow for me, so I was able to do all the damage for game. Wonderful card as well. Also to note too, one of my personal favorite cards was Ancient Fairy Dragon. The fact that so many decks right now are playing field spell cards, this is probably one of the best cards to actually keep running in the deck. It does so much, and not to mention it has a 3,000 defense body, and it's level 7 and a dragon. And not to mention too, by being able to destroy any field spell card, gain 1,000 life, and search for another field spell card, it allows you to have multiple ravines, including if your opponent plays field spells. So it's like if you play 2 and then you play spellbooks and they have 2 towers, automatically it's like you have 4 ravines in a sense, because you're always going to be able to search it out now at this point. So it's a very detrimental card for the entire play and stuff like that. Now the only thing that's noted too is that I do play the Gold Stark. I didn't get to use this mostly all day. I only used it once, and it was in round 10, where I played against the Blue Eyes mirror match, Dragon Ruler mirror match, I would say. And I actually was able to get all 4 dragons out in one turn because of it, and it also comboed into the Cards of Consonance play. So overall, it's there mainly to help for that. I usually cite it out, but for the most part, though, it did a lot of work that I needed it to do. Alright, and then I'll go on into my sideboard, which was kind of interesting too. And I played Morphing Jar number 2. Wonderful tech card. It was mainly for Evil Sworns, and this card did a lot of work. I was really surprised. I took away a lot of Ophions with this, and this card did so much value against my round 2 matchup when I played against a counter fairy deck. He had a Banisher of the Radiance, a Fossil Dyna, and a Bountiful, and I had a Flame Veil Guard that he couldn't get over. I flipped over. He ended up hitting my Morphing Jar, flipped it over. I then shuffled all his monsters back in. He lost 10 spell or trap cards, and then he brought out a Lily, a Banisher, and a Bountiful in defense mode. And then from my previous turn, I was able to go off by forcing him to play cards. And then I made Tempest, Redox, and Card Trooper, attacked all his monsters. He had Offerings of Doom to my Star Eater prior. And within that same turn, I was able to push out everything for the final game push. And we got into time, and within turns, I was able to beat him before official final turns were over. So the Morphing Jar I owe a lot, especially even just to deal with a lot of Ophion plays. Alright. Also, I was really happy to play was this, as the Fencing Fire Ferret. My friend recommended it the night before because he said he had a lot of good matchups against all the rogues with it, and I actually was very impressed with this card. I played against Blackwings, and he had a Key Beetle attached with a Vanity's Emptiness affecting it. He attacked this. I had to destroy the Beetle. He forced it out by destroying his Emptiness instead, so that way the Beetle could survive. And from then I was able to continue winning because he had no Vanity's Emptiness, and this allowed me to continue my pushes. And against Evil Sworn, this just kept baiting out all his monsters, and he kept losing more and more resources. Not to mention it's a good attacker and stuff like that too. It's fire, so it helps with Blaster. And it was just all-around powerful card. I think the best play that I did with this all day, though, was using Scrap Dragon to pop a Soul Drain, which then destroyed this, and then destroyed his monster, and he took 500. So, like, this card is a really good combination card, and I liked it a lot. And I played 2 of them, and it was just perfect. Also for Evil Sworns, I played 2 Exceed Encores. Now, Exceed Encore was wonderful in the fact that no matter what happened, Ophion, anything, it was going to be going away. There was nothing they can do to it. It was the perfect answer and scenario for anything. And I did use it against the Evil Sworn matchup, and it turned out to be very important, so I was really happy that I ended up playing this. I ended up playing 3 MSTs, pretty much cited in almost against every matchup. I was assuming that anyone I played against was citing Iron Wall, was citing Vanity's Emptiness, was citing Goes and Match, anything. So I already knew that this was the most powerful card that I was going to have to use from my sideboard to be mained, and I was perfectly fine with it. It was relatively easy to put in as well, and they did do a lot of work. Lightning Vortex, I only cited this for a few matchups like Black Wings. Also, I played against Harpy Ladies at the event, so this actually helped me wipe out most of the fields that they had created, and it just made it easier for me to actually push in for more damage. And also, it can help against Mirror Match too, which I did use it for, and it wasn't too bad. It actually does help too if they set up with the Vanity's Emptiness and you just Lightning Vortex their board after. 2 Skill Drains, which was against mostly the Rogue decks or like especially Evil Sworn. I didn't really use it as much as I'd want to, but overall though it was perfectly fine. And then 2 Debunks. Debunk was really good. I used it against Mermails and Mirror Match pretty much as the primaries. It worked out really well. It took away a lot of titles. I think that's the main thing it always hit was a title. Not just in Mermails, but actually in Dragons. For some reason, it always hit title. Overall, though, I did like it. It didn't really hit any hand traps, but for the most part, though, it did hit all of the cards that were pretty much I was worried about in those matchups. And again, it was actually highly recommended, especially now. 1 Needle Sealing. I originally wasn't going to run the Fire Ferrets. I was going to run 3 Needle Sealings just for Infernities. But I took out 2 of the Needle Sealings and put the Fencing Fire Ferrets, and I think that was the best choice I ever made. Didn't play any Infernities, so this was actually the best primary choice for it. And lastly, Eradicator Epidemic Virus. I actually drew this and never got to use it, and other times cited it and never needed it. So I can't really say that this is a bad or a good card, but for the most part though it was there, and it felt good to know that it was there, but at the same time again it didn't really prove to be too much for it. Pretty much that's about the deck for it, guys. Again, it wasn't too complicated to play. It was, however, though, very selective in your choices, though. So whatever you do decide and what your opponent does is the biggest thing. I mean, one of the more powerful plays that I was able to make as well was when my opponents would use Vanity's Emptiness, and then I would just chain Return on top just to be prepared for any outs. I mean, in my opinion, honestly, a Return does need to get banned. This card single-handedly stole away, I think, 5 games from players that I played against. Just for the fact that if they're not ready for it, or all the ammunition that you feel with your graveyard, especially because most players cannot deal with 28, 26, 24 beaters. It's amazing how much this deck actually has so much synergy. I even played against a Mermail matchup where I can't stress enough how powerful the draw engine is that he soul exchanged one of my dragons. He then tributed for Vanity's Emptiness, and this was against Mermails in Game 3. I had no responso at a current time that he did that, but I did have a Dragon's Ravine up, so I was still perfectly fine. The thing is, I drew on my following turn with a card of Consonance, and I discarded one of the Earth Dragons, I believe, Redox. And then I searched my deck for a Kosefka, and I was able to discard with a card of Consonance. I drew directly into a Regeki Break. It put myself in such a prime situation, and the fact that it was there, it allowed me to deal with the Vanity's Emptiness thinking my opponent was secure on his turn, and when it came to my turn, I was able to push in all the damage, including baiting out a Sphere, and reducing all of his resources down to 0 at that point in time. The deck is really, really powerful, guys. I actually feel it's probably the best deck in the format. I feel nothing else that I can say that things of the deck can be beaten, but for the most part, though, I do think that this is probably the best deck. I mean, honestly, I know that Spellbooks is fun to play too, and I like Spellbooks a lot, but this deck has been very resilient from the ban list. I mean, to be honest with you, it kind of makes me a little bit nostalgia of plants, and everybody knows that I love plants, so I really hope that the way that this is going, that this deck is, it's something to be definitely on the radar and to be aware of, guys, because this is one of the tier decks. I mean, Evil Sworn is a tough matchup, of course. I mean, for anyone. Mermail is actually surprisingly really good, but I do feel that the way that this deck was built, it's superior compared to the Blue Eyes versions and compared to the Dragoonity versions, because the weaknesses are not there, and the draw engine applies to any of the points where you might be, suffering a little bit. Helps you get into your sideboard cards as well, and again, this is probably the best outcome I've ever, like I said, done with this deck in a while. I was kind of happy to actually play this for, random choice. I was originally intended to play Spellbooks, but Dragons, I think, were the best opportunity. I just went with my gut feeling, and it kind of worked out. First off, too, guys, I also want to thank everybody, all the players, and all the judges for the event. I had a wonderful time. I was, glad to represent not only just, my shop and stuff like that, but also a big representation for myself to start playing again. And also to show you guys too that I'm interested in making more videos and applying more myself for this channel, and for you guys, to actually get more of an insight in how to play competitively, and of course, to be able to understand this game a little bit better. Alright guys, alright, so I hope you guys like this channel, and I hope you guys comment, subscribe, let your friends know, guys, about me. And again, this was the deck that I topped at the Anaheim Regionals, went undefeated with Dragon Rollers. And guys, this is PN Collector signing out.